because maybe love is asking you to be more forgiving to yourself, to other people. Maybe love is asking you to be more courageous and to be more willing to be seen, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe love is asking you to examine what are some of the beliefs that you've had about yourself.
So the way I love to start the conversation is by asking, how are you doing PMS? So physically, mentally, and spiritually in this moment. And you can go as deep or as not as you want to. It's up to you.
Physically, I'm doing pretty well. I would be doing better if I was practicing yoga more regularly, because I definitely have some aches and pains and stiffness that could be solved with me just being more consistent about my yoga practice. So, but other than that, blessedly, I'm doing well. Just a little middle-age aches and pains.
Same. I feel you.
Mentally, I think I'm doing well. I feel like I have, I'm so glad that I've been doing so much work on myself, on my mindset. You know, being a coach for 12 years has been incredibly helpful because I've learned so much from my clients. So I feel that, you know, even though things are crazy on so many levels right now, mentally, I have the tools to kind of keep myself in a good place. So that's, again, thank God for that. Yes. And spiritually, I'm doing well. It's a journey. It's evolving. Yes. I've had a lot of insights recently about forgiveness. So I've been doing a lot of forgiveness work, just forgiving old resentments, forgiving myself. I confessed something to my mom that I had been holding on to since I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, so I've been doing and asked her forgiveness. So I've been doing a lot of work and reflection around forgiveness, and it's been really powerful.
I love that. You know what I love? I love you're the first person in a while that I can remember who the spiritual part, you connected it to other people. I really love that. I appreciate that. And that's like, I don't know, that's like food for thought for me. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was a great question. Thanks for asking.
Of course. So let us talk about love and finding true love, right? Yes. So you, when does the book come out? Does it?
So the book came out. It came out last month.
Okay, it came out last month. Okay.
Yes.
So you recently authored a brand new book about finding true love. So I would love to know, in the world that we live in, right, where tech is supposed to make connection easier, why do you think people feel even lonelier than before all the tech tools and social media and things? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think that your question kind of says it, like, or tech is supposed to make connection easier. But I think, we have gotten too dependent on technology for connection, and it's a pale substitute. I mean, It is absolutely better to be connected technologically to people than to have no connection to people at all. But nothing beats in person. Nothing beats those authentic connections that go beyond the screen. So I think that just, in the dating world, because, obviously that's what I focus on, technology has really taken over in a way that's made people feel very disempowered, very disconnected from their own romantic agency, right? So it feels like, in order to connect with people, in order to meet people to date, I have to be on an app. I have to be swiping, even if I hate that, even if that feels completely unnatural to me. That's just what I have to do. And so I think, that's obviously, the loneliness epidemic and all of that is beyond dating apps. But I do think overall, we just have this dependency and this addiction. I mean, because, these tech platforms, they are designed very intentionally to capture our attention and to make us dependent on them. And I think, we're all suffering as a result of that right now.
Yeah, really and truly. And I kind of want to go back because you have an interesting career trajectory. And I actually wanted to ask that first, but I just got a little ahead of myself. So you went from corporate law to being a dating and relationship coach. So talk to me about how did that transition happen?
Yeah. So I think honestly, the story starts in childhood. Don't
Hmm.
worry, I'm not going to tell you my whole life story, but I was always a romantic child who loved love stories and loved the idea of being in love, and it had a lot of dreams that I was going to grow up and have, great love and passion and all of that. And I was very focused on that from a very young age. However, I didn't know how to do any of that.
Hmm.
And so when I found myself as a young lawyer, I also realized like, I want to have relationships, I want to date, and I really don't know how to make that happen. So years ago, when I was still in my early 20s, I decided that I needed to set out on this mission to teach myself how to date. So back then, this was pre-dating app, but I got on Match.com back when. At that time, online dating was like you wanted to get on, meet someone as quickly as possible, and get off as quickly as possible because
Yep.
you didn't, it was very stigmatized, right?
Hmm.
And I was definitely one of those people who was like praying that nobody I knew saw me on Match.com, but it didn't matter because I had to do it because at that
Hmm.
time I didn't know what else to do,
Hmm.
and so I really little did I know that I was really my first client because I took myself through this process, which I just had to feel my way through of like, okay, how do I get a date? How do I get a second date? How do I choose the right person? How do I flirt? How do I connect? How do I enjoy this process? And so I learned a lot of things along the way of this journey of mine. So I started a dating advice blog back when I was still a lawyer because I saw a lot of other people struggling with things that I used to struggle with. And I was like, wait, I can help them. So I think is an example of one of those things where sometimes we have these breadcrumbs in our lives that we don't even notice or we don't connect to anything more. Because to me, that was just like, this is just a little thing I'm doing because I enjoy talking about dating and I want to help people who are struggling with it. And it wasn't until many years later that I found out that there were people whose job it was to do that.
Mm.
And that there was actually a whole career path. And I started as a matchmaker. So I originally went to matchmaking school
Oh,
and I went to this
wow. There's a
matchmaking
school?
conference. Yes,
Oh,
yes.
wow.
That's exactly how I responded when I found out.
Wow.
I'd been at a 4th of July barbecue and I met this woman who mentioned that she followed this black male matchmaker named Paul C. Brunson on Twitter.
Mhm.
And I was like, there's a black male matchmaker? Because at that time I knew like the Millionaire Matchmaker and I
Yes.
didn't, know any other modern matchmakers. And I was like, wait, I want to follow him. So I started following him and he tweeted one day that he was going to be speaking at the Matchmaking Institute conference. And I was like, there's a matchmaking institute? They
Word.
have conferences? Tell me more, right? And so and I literally responded to his tweet and I said, I want to go. And he said, you should come. And I took that as an invitation and I went and I met all of these people whose job was to help other people find love. And they were just regular people, but this is what they did. And I was like, oh, wait, if they can do this, I can do this. I want to pursue this.
Wow. That is fascinating. Um, okay, so tell me, do you still matchmake or have
So
you transitioned out of that? Hmm.
yes. So I transitioned out of matchmaking to coaching exclusively. So
Hmm.
I think of it as I coach people to be their own matchmakers,
Hmm.
which is much more successful because a lot of people who hire matchmakers, they don't necessarily have the skills at dating. They don't have the skills at relationship. And they're often looking at matchmaking as the silver bullet. Like,
Hmm.
okay, now I don't have to be vulnerable in the same way. I don't have to put myself out there in the same way because I'm just getting these introductions. And I found that a lot of people have this mindset about matchmaking, which is it doesn't matter if I've never met anybody who meets my criteria, but this is what I want. And now that I'm paying you, it's your job to go out and find me
Stop.
these people.
Hmm.
Um, and so what I discovered is matchmaking, because I actually wound up going to work for Paul Brunson, who's the one who kind of inspired this whole career, in addition to starting my own matchmaking business. So I was working with him, I was matching my own clients, and it became very clear that all across the board, the clients that we could match were the clients who were really open to looking at themselves,
Mm.
really being honest with themselves about how am I showing up? What are my expectations? I say I want all of these things, but am I showing up in alignment with that? People who could take the feedback, because a big part of matchmaking is feedback. Because, when we'd set a client up on a date, we'd get feedback from the client, but we'd also get feedback from their date, right? And so the people that could really be more engaged with the process and take more personal responsibility, those were the people that we could match. And the people who were just like, nope, I just want what I want. And if it's not working out, it's everybody else's fault. Those people were very challenging to match and also just challenging to work with, frankly. And so I realized that coaching is really the secret sauce. And now I've become really like evangelical about it, because now I really want everyone to have a real sense of what I call love confidence. And that is just the belief that you have that you can handle love. You can find it, you can cultivate it over time, and you can feel confident in it.
Ooh, I love that. So I actually want to talk about 4 things that you mention in your book. So you talk about mindset, heart set, skill set, and soul set when finding love.
Yes.
So I think we know what mindset is. What about heart set, skill set, and soul set? So what are those things and why do they matter?
So heart set is really, so as mindset, we can all understand what mindset is, right? How you think about love. Because a lot of people have what they actually think about love is very disempowering, can be very disconnected from what they actually want, can be based in total fantasy, not in reality. And so all those things can really get in the way. So that's where I start. But then I go on to heart set, which is really about how do you feel about love? What do you believe is possible for you in love, right? How do you feel about yourself on this love journey? Like I mentioned, that concept of love confidence. What are the patterns that are showing up and what are the beliefs that are underneath those patterns? Because we are creatures of belief, right? Yeah. As humans, we want to be right about what we believe more than we want to be happy. And so when we have...
That's a word. Wow.
Right? So when we have disempowering beliefs around love, like, so for instance, like it's going to take a miracle for me to meet anyone, or, nobody wants to date someone like me, or I'm too old, or I missed my chance at love, or all of these things, and usually people who believe things like that don't want those things to be true, but they truly believe them, right? And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because it totally impacts how you show up in the world, how you interact with other people, what your expectations are of the people that you are interacting with. And so it's really important to get very clear on like, wait, what is my heart calling me to experience in a relationship? And do I actually have the beliefs and the confidence to actually open my heart and know that that's possible for me? And then the third part of the book is soul set. And soul set is, I think of this as like the hidden secret sauce that so many people overlook on their love journey. And this is really the acknowledgement that love is spiritual. Like in its nature, love is spiritual, right? It is not physical. We can't pour it in a cup. We can't put it in our pocket. It is of the spirit, right? And so many people are approaching relationships without any connection to the spirit. And so when you start to understand, okay, the power of intention, the power of gratitude, the fact that romantic flow is something that exists and that you can tap into it. The power of serendipity. I'm a very big fan of courting serendipity, right? Because when it comes to romantic love, it isn't like, if you want a pair of new black shoes, like, the steps to take, the stores to go to, how to find a pair of black shoes, right? But when you're looking for a romantic partner, you can take steps that are going to set you up to make that happen, make that more likely, yourself more open to it. But ultimately, like, serendipity is going to play a part, right? You coming, you know what I mean? So you have to understand that and understand like, okay, here's what's my department and here's what's the universe's department. And how can I just align myself on a spiritual level, on an inside level with what I want so that I'm actually able to access the miracle, the serendipity, and all of the good things that do happen to bring you and the right people together.
So I have a question there.
Oh yeah.
So how do we make ourselves more available? So like you made a really good point. If I need some black shoes, I know which stores to go to that will likely carry those black shoes.
Mhm.
So in a world where a lot of us are constantly working and we have all types of responsibilities and wear all these different types of hats, how do we make ourselves more available to love, and where do we go? Because I don't know, do you still believe in the apps? I guess they're two
Yeah.
separate questions.
Yeah. No, but they are related. I mean, I believe that what's more important than where you go is how you show up when you get there, right?
Okay.
So, how are you moving through the world? Are you comfortable with receiving romantic attention? Are you comfortable with initiating attention with somebody else? Are you comfortable making eye contact, with smiling, with, can you be present when you're interacting with people? Or are you in your head about what they're thinking about you, how it's being received? Like, can you actually relax into the fact that you are a human, and once you have that intention to make that romantic connection with another person, things are going to start to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are going to start to get those opportunities. And so, in terms of dating apps, I mean, I'm not the hugest fan of them, but I
Mhm.
also do understand that they are a tool,
Mhm.
and that I don't want, what I don't want is for people to be solely dependent on them, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want people to say the only way that I can date in 2025 is to be on a dating app. That I don't want, right?
Mhm.
So if
Mhm.
you're using it as a tool to supplement your in-person, in real life efforts, then that's great. But if it's like that's the only portal to dating, then I think that is a problem. But that openness, it looks like more than one thing, right? So, and this is why even, talking about forgiveness, how I've been on this,
Mhm.
doing all of this forgiveness work recently, if you're somebody who's holding on to a lot of bitterness and a lot of resentment, you might not understand how that is connected to your openness to receive romantic love, but that doesn't mean it's not, right? Right.
Yeah.
So the more you start thinking about, okay, what does it look like to live a life where my heart is open? Like, we don't have to be perfect. So this is never about any type of perfectionism.
Mhm.
But, am I able to live a life where my heart is open, where I'm able to assume best intentions? I can actually receive love and attention from other people. I can give that in return. I can not be so reactive, because dating can be very triggering, right? Of
Mhm.
all of our deepest fears and insecurities. So,
Yeah.
can you learn to have a more loving relationship with yourself so that you're able to receive love from other people, and you're also not projecting, good or bad onto others. So there's a lot to, that's why the book has all these different parts to it, because it is more than one thing.
Yeah.
But I really think in terms of that openness, it really even just starts like, I have this concept that I call the meet cute mindset. And, that I talk about in the book. And that's just the belief that every time you leave your house, you have the potential to meet someone special.
Mm.
And if you can embrace that as a possibility, then how does that change the way that you show up? How
Yeah.
does that change the level of vulnerability you might be willing to engage in if you do see somebody who looks interesting to you, who looks intriguing, right?
Mhm.
How tapped into you are you to your intuition? Um,
Mm.
because, like, I think I would say the relationship I'm in now, and also the relationship that I was in for many years before, those relationships totally started with my intuition going, there's something here, right? Like, I'm
Mhm.
supposed to keep talking to this person, right?
Mhm.
And I listen to that.
Mhm.
But I think so many people are not tapped into the intuition. They're just really going from their heads and our overthinking minds. So
Mhm.
openness, it can look different for different people. It's kind of like, I talk about this again in the book, where it's like, we all have a different love assignment at any given time.
Oh, a love
And
assignment.
yes, we always have a love assignment. I mean, what I really believe is that we are all on a lifelong love journey. And as long as you are alive, you are on this journey. And the purpose of this journey is for us to learn to give and receive more love.
Hmm.
And that
That's
looks different.
beautiful. Yeah.
at different times, right? And that can be challenging for us at different times for different reasons. But I really do think that that's what we're all being called to do. So when I talk about a love assignment, it's like, well, what is love asking of you right now? Because maybe love is asking you to be more forgiving to yourself, to other people. Maybe love is asking you to be more courageous and to be more willing to be seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe love is asking you to examine what are some of the beliefs that you've had about yourself that actually disconnect you from the love that you want. So I think that it's just important to know that wherever we are on this journey, there's always, always, always an opportunity for us to grow in that capacity to give and receive love. It just looks different at different times.
I love that. And this love journey is not just the romantic love, right? It's
Right.
like all the
Right.
relationships that we have in our lives. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
exactly,
so true.
exactly, exactly. And then even in dating, though, it looks different because, I have a chapter in the book on my 4 dating archetypes. And I created those archetypes because I realized not everybody, dating advice it doesn't generally work, general dating advice, because it's not one size fits all.
True.
And what someone might have a challenge and their assignment might be like, I actually just need to start going on dates. I actually just need to get comfortable with being
Being out
seen
there.
romantically, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might be one person's assignment. Another person's assignment is I need to slow things down when I meet someone because I tend to move really fast. And I take that instant chemistry as a sign that to go, 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 go. And I've been doing that for so long. I'm tired of this relationship pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people, their assignment is to actually get clear on what you really need in a relationship, not just what you've been told you should have or what you think you should have, but what actually feels good and aligned and fulfilling to you. So everybody needs to kind of know where they are
Mm-hmm.
on that journey in order to like most effectively achieve or to complete their current love assignment.
Oh, I love that so much. Um, which sets? So we talked about, the 4 sets
Oh
in
yeah, I'm
the
sorry, I didn't
book,
mention
right?
skill set. I forgot that
Oh,
one.
yes. Yeah, let's talk
Yes.
about it.
So skill set. So these are all about the dating skills that I really see as love skills, right?
Mhm.
Dating skills to me, I think dating is a really important process. It teaches us so much about ourselves. It teaches us so much about connection. It teaches us so much about what we need in a relationship, how we need to show up in a relationship for things to work out and to be connected and to feel that love. And so the skill set piece of the book is all of those foundational skills. So it's, I have a whole chapter on flirting, which is something I'm very passionate about. I really believe that flirting is a superpower. And whether you are single or whether you've been married for 20 years, if flirting is going to help you, right, in that
Mhm.
process, and in those relationships. Having discernment, how do you actually know when somebody is on the same page as you romantically? How do you actually date in a way that's in alignment with what you want versus just kind of pushing your way through and struggling your way through dating, which a lot of people do. Like they hate it, but they're doing it
Yeah.
because like, well, I'm supposed to meet someone, but it's like, wait, this is actually supposed to feel good. So how can
Right.
we get you to a place? How can you start to date differently so that you're actually dating in a way that is productive, right? And doesn't feel like it's soul sucking.
Or like a
um,
job.
yeah, exactly. So a lot of those just really foundational things that make the dating journey easier, but ultimately also make that next relationship the best relationship you've ever been in.
I am with you. Bring back flirting because for sure, like we all walk around like very heavy. If we just saw each other, there'd be like some levity, and that would be a ripple effect. The world would absolutely be much better. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And then also not, most of those interactions as you're going throughout your day, they're contained, right? Like you're
Hmm.
going to have that interaction, you're going to move on. Maybe you're never going to see that person again. That is its own value. And I think that is what we all need to embrace. But also sometimes those interactions can be more than that, right?
Hmm.
And so when I talk about like courting serendipity, one of the ways to do that is to move through the world with like, okay, I'm here to connect. Like, I want to meet someone, special. Like I want to have a great relationship. And that starts with me just showing up as a person who's ready to connect and have relationships with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So I have a question. So
Yes.
for the exhausted romantic, so this person has been dating for a while and just has not found success in what they deem to be successful, right? In
Yeah.
relationships and love. What do you say to that person who is just, quote, tired of trying?
Yeah. So, great question. And there's obviously a lot of people these days who are in that situation. And so the first thing I would say is we got to pause
Mhm.
because it's not enough to just be like, oh, this is exhausting, or this, I hate this, or this isn't working. It's like, okay, let's see what's actually going on.
Mhm.
So, what isn't working? What might be working? Right? How are you approaching dating? Are you exhausted because like going back to the app thing, a lot of people
Mhm.
are exhausted because the apps are their only connection
Yeah.
to dating. And, those all of the apps, they are technology platforms first and foremost, right? And
Mhm.
so for you to be on the app swiping for years is fine by them, right?
Right.
So if you are using the technology in a way where you're not being more intentional and more mindful,
Mhm.
then it's very easy for you to get kind of sucked into that
Yeah.
habit, right?
Yep.
And then it feels demoralizing. So for some people, like sometimes I have clients where it's like, okay, we need to just like delete all of your apps and like reset, right?
Mhm.
So I'm a big fan of 3-month love goals, and this is something that I walk people through in the skill set part of the book, which is okay. Here, I know where I am and I know where I don't want to be, right?
Mhm.
But what do I want my love life to look like 3 months from now?
Mhm.
And 3 months is a long enough time to see progress, but it's not so long that if you're like, oh, I haven't been on a date in 5 years, in 3 months, I want to be engaged. That could happen. However, you're
Right.
not really setting yourself up to win, right? Like,
Right.
what are you
Right.
actually going to do? But if you say, okay, in 3 months, I want to be actually enjoying dating. I want to be,
Okay.
dating one person who I feel like I really connect with. Then
Mhm.
we can start to reverse engineer and say, okay, what are you doing right now that is encouraging that, right? That's setting you
Mhm.
up to get to that goal, that 3-month goal, and what needs to shift. So
Mhm.
for a lot of people, even just really taking this audit of their lives, like, do you have time? Do you have space? Are you trying to cram dating in
Mhm.
onto like all of the other million things that you're doing? Or are you actually carving out space for something that is important to you, and so you can do this in a way that feels better?
Yeah.
Who is it that you are aiming to date and why? Getting really clear. I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, you can have a list that has 1,000 things on it that you want in another person. That's fine. But you do need to look at every single thing on that list and make sure, number one, it's actually connected to the relationship that you're going to have with that person. Because
Mm.
oftentimes it's not, right?
Mhm.
So just asking like, well, why? Why is this important to me? Why?
Ooh.
Why am I prioritizing this? And is this realistic, right? Does this person exist? Am I actually creating a barrier for myself because I have all these ideas about the kind of person that I should be with, but what do I actually want to experience in my relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like, the analogy that I give is if you were on the market for a new house, like you would certainly care about the neighborhood and you would care about what the house looked like on the outside, and you might care about what the yawn looks like, or
Mhm.
the lawn. I confuse lawn and yard in my mind at the same time. You might care what those things look like, but you're not just going to like see like, oh great, curb appeal, I want that house. Like you
Right.
still are going to care about what it feels like to live inside that house, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the same thing with relationships, because we can be so focused on, I want a person who's this, that, the other. And you have
Mhm.
all these ideas about what they should be. But then it's like, okay, but what is it actually like to be with that person?
Mhm.
Like I think a really good example of this is because I work with a lot of I work with a lot of professional women clients. I work with everyone, but most of my clients are like professional women. And so they'll say things to me like, okay, well, I need to be with, and most of my clients also date men, not all of them, but most of them do. And so like a lot of women will say to me like, oh, well, I need a man who has this certain level of education. And I say, okay, again, just, you can have anything you want on your list. It's your list, but let's just talk about why. And they'll usually say, oh, because if he has that level of education, then he won't be intimidated by me and he'll be supportive of me and we'll have all of these things in common. Right. And I say, okay, so what I'm hearing is that you want somebody who's going to be supportive of you, right? Who's not intimidated by you, who you have a lot of things in common with. So you could actually just focus on that. Yep. Instead of using a certain level of education as a proxy for that. Yep. Because there are plenty of men who have that and more education, and they're still not going to support you. That part. Yep. You know? Yep. And they're still, so it's like getting underneath the thing is really important, and it brings a lot of clarity, and it saves a lot of wasted time chasing after what you think is going to make you happy in a relationship versus getting clear on, oh, these are the things I need. So when I'm interacting with people, I can just determine like, is this person supportive? Do I feel like this is intellectually stimulating? Because again, there are plenty of people who have lots of degrees and you're not actually going to enjoy talking to them. Does and or not as well read as you thought they would be. Or not as well read as you thought they would be, right? Maybe they have this degree and they haven't picked up a book in 15 years since they left school. Right. Right. And so if you care about that, but then if you're like, oh, I like people who I can have like, you know, who are well-read, who are excited about things going on in the world, then focus on that. And that's easier to find. And then it also eliminates this sort of scarcity mindset that can happen, which is like, well, there's only this many people who have this, who meet this criteria. And it's like, no, but if you go underneath that criteria, it actually opens up the number of people that you could connect with. I need everyone to read this book. Like whether you are single, whether you are partnered, whether you are married, because I'm thinking I need to read this book too, because sometimes when my friends are talking, I'm just like sitting there, but like I can learn some things to be able to have like a meaningful conversation with them. You know what I mean? No, there's so much that you're saying in this conversation that I'm thinking about, like things that I saw online, like, you know, conversation between men and women, or just I focus my lane is in women online. So like women saying that like it's so hard to date because they want the man who is 6'3". He has to have his master's degree. He has to make $150,000 a year. And this does not speak to how do you feel in the relationship, like the things that you're talking about here. So let's get clear as to why we want certain things and what will those things contribute to the relationship, if anything at all, right? So if anything at all, exactly. Exactly. Because a lot of times it contributes nothing. The new number online seems to be 250. That's what everybody wants now. They want some. And meanwhile, go ahead. Go ahead. Meanwhile, well, but it's also again, but when you start asking people why that number, because it's arbitrary, honestly, right? And they'll say, well, that means that they're successful, and that means they can afford this, and that means that doesn't mean any of those things, right? Because there's plenty of people who make that much money and more, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. And like, so if you care about being with somebody who actually, if you're like, okay, no, you know, having like financial stability and, you know, somebody that I can grow with in that way is important to me. That's awesome. Right. So then rather than being like somebody makes a certain amount of money, what are their money habits? What is their relationship with money? Right. Like, are you now, okay, now somebody has a big salary in your mind, but they spend every single dime that they make and there's no cushion and there's that's not security. You know, so again, what do you actually want? And once you get clear on that, then it makes a lot of these things that people get hung up on and the scarcity mindset, you know, the 6'3" thing, you know, I'm like, the average American woman is 5'5". Why do you need to be with a man 6'3"? Hello, somebody. Hello. I used to get so irritated when I was single because I'm just like, I'm 5'7". So I'm just like, okay, us tall girls, like, where do we find if all the 5'2s have the 6'3s? Like,
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. And I'm 5'11", by the way. And I was always like, first of all, I'm like, I've never been a heightist, maybe because I'm too tall to be a heightist.
I'm not either. My man is 5'10".
But I was like, I just want somebody who's around my height generally.
Yes.
Like I've never had this like strict, this super strict height requirement. But then again, you ask women, why? Why is it actually important to you? What does it have to do with your relationship? And so they'll say things like, oh, well, then he can protect me. It's like, okay, so you want a man who's protective. Because guess what? Every man who's 6'3" is not.
Hello.
Right? And there are men who are 5'3" who are. Right? So if you care about protective, you say, oh, well, that makes me feel more feminine. It's like, okay, well, how can you cultivate your own sense of femininity within yourself so that it's not dependent on the height of somebody else, right? Because, so many people, they create these lists and this criteria. And then it's like, okay, now there's 5 people in this whole city who meet this. And now you're like, oh, I can't, it's impossible for me to find love. No, it's impossible for you to be this transactional about it. Right.
Ooh, transactional. Talk to them. Yes. Yes.
And a lot of people who are very transactional and superficial about what they want in another person, it's like, okay, if that's what you're setting yourself up for, then you also need to be aware that they're going to be that way towards you. Right. So is that the game that you want to play? Yep. Or do you want to play, or do you actually want to have true love? Right. Yep. And true love, as I define it, is primarily about a relationship and the qualities that a particular relationship has. So, treating each other with unconditional love. You may not feel in love every moment, but you still have a foundation of like, I'm always going to treat you with love. Love is a verb. It's not just a feeling. So that's another thing that people need to like understand, right? Yep. People can say they love you, but if they're not treating you with love, that's not loving, right? Yep. Unconditional respect. So the idea, to me, the biggest red flag is if a man is like, oh, a woman needs to earn my respect. No, she doesn't. No, right. She exists, so she deserves to be respected.
That
right?
Part. Yep. That part. Yep.
Right. So intimacy, emotionally and physically, safety, emotionally and physically. Right. Commitment, because if you don't have that level of commitment, then how are you going to feel the safety to truly be vulnerable and to open yourself up? Right. Because it just would be too scary. Right. Yeah. Do you amplify each other's joy? Right. Not this idea of like in the fairy tale that we've been sold our whole lives. It's another person's job to, quote, make us happy. But as I'm sure we all know people who nothing can make them happy. True. Right. And it's certainly not for long. And so if you don't have an ability to cultivate that own joy and your own happiness, then asking for that from another person is going to be really challenging. Your relationships are going to be really challenging. But if you come together with somebody if you can cultivate your own joy and they can also cultivate their own joy, then you come together and that just gets amplified, right? Yeah. So that's how I think of true love. I think about it as, what do we co-create when we come together? Because every relationship you have is unique. It is unique. It is a unique co-creation between you and another person. And it has its own energy. It has its own dynamics. It has its own values. And if we focus on what we're actually able to build with another person versus do they check all these items on a box, that opens love up. It makes it much more expansive. It makes it much more fulfilling.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I will have the links to buy the book down below in the show notes. Please go purchase it for yourself, for your friends, your loved ones. We all could use this book. Yes. How to Find True Love. Francesca, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me at Dear Franny. That's my handle on all of the platforms. I also have a podcast called Dear Franny. And I would love for people to connect.
Yes. Thank you for listening to this episode of Be Well Sis. If you'd like to get in touch with us, there's a link in the show notes. Be Well Sis is hosted by me, Dr. Cassandra Dunbar, and produced by Edit Audio. Don't forget to hit follow so you never miss an episode. Until next time, be well, sis.